If you're leaving a corporate role or you're about to do so and you're thinking about going independent, there's something nobody prepares you for. The structure that carried your authority, your relevance and your success, it wasn't yours. It belonged to the company, and the day you leave, all of this stays behind. I've spent 20 years working with over 1,000 senior leaders, figuring out what replaces that relevance once you start your own entrepreneurial journey. This is the framework I will share with you today. My name is Arndt Halbach. I've spent 18 years of my career building Era Group, global network of independent consultants that I started in Germany and that we grew to over 1,000 consultants in 60 countries. Think of it as a platform that turns experienced executives into high-performing independent advisors. Building that from a standing start and exiting to private equity last year was kind of the laboratory, if you will, where everything I'm going to share with you was tested. A few years into that journey, I actually had a conversation I haven't forgotten. There was a consultant in our network. He had spent 25 years as a senior procurement director at a large German manufacturer. He was smart, experienced, well-respected. He joined our platform because he wanted to build something independent. But he was really struggling. Not because he lacked the skills. He was actually more impressive than most of the other partners I'd been working with. He was struggling because the things that had made him so effective inside a large organization, the title, the team, the institutional weight behind the logo on his business card, they were gone and he just wasn't ready for that. So sitting across from him, I had this thought. This is actually the problem. It's not the market, not his age, not the economy. The problem is that nobody teaches this transition properly. I had completed my doctorate in entrepreneurship in 2010. My research was specifically around why and how people build things, what drives them, what stops them, what determines whether what they build actually compounds over time or quietly runs out of steam. So at that time, I was building Era, I was also studying the underlying mechanics of exactly that question. Which meant sitting across from the consultant, I wasn't just kind of watching what was happening, I developed a framework for understanding why. And I watched that pattern play out hundreds of times with different consultants across 50 countries, through a financial crisis, through COVID, through the early stages of an AI shift that's still accelerating. And it's always the same gap. It's not a gap in skills or capability. It's a gap in architecture. And I want to share that architectural framework with you. So, before we go deep, let me show you the whole thing first. I call it the second curve architecture, and it has 3 layers. Layer 1 is what I call the flywheel. 5 components that work together as an engine. Market structure, pipeline, governance, your operating system, and proof. These 5 form a loop. Each time around, the loop gets stronger. This is what replaces the institutional machine you left behind with something you now own entirely. Layer 2 is what I call the amplifiers. Once your flywheel is running, 3 things can multiply its reach without multiplying your hours, very importantly. Platforms that give you leverage, people with real skin in the game, and thought leadership that kind of works while you're sleeping. Layer 3 is what I call the equity horizon. This is a layer almost nobody talks about. It's about the access you earn by being trusted inside businesses, and how that access, handled with integrity, can open doors to equity, deal flow, and ownership that fee income alone never could. We're going to go through all 3 layers, but first I want to tell you what this actually looks like when it comes together. Not as a framework, but as a life. Because I know that this journey can be super scary. And without a clear why, I think going independent will be challenging for you. I've worked closely with enough executives who've navigated this well that I can tell you in specific terms what the other side really looks like. The other side looks like work you actually chose. Not work that found you because you needed the income. Work you designed around problems you find genuinely interesting and with clients you actually care about at a pace that fits how you want to live. I know that might sound a bit abstract, but I mean it literally. The executives who do this well often tell me they wake up on a Monday morning and think, I'm looking forward to this. And they haven't felt like this in years. The other side also looks like income that doesn't depend on any single client relationships. Income built on a system, one that generates momentum consistently and that gets stronger with every engagement rather than starting from zero every time. And the other side also looks like real freedom. Not the version of freedom that sounds good on a LinkedIn post and turns out to just be anxiety with a flexible schedule. Actual freedom. Evenings that are protected because you designed it that way. And a summer spent somewhere nice, and you're really there. You're not half there with the laptop open. To me, really, that means presence with the people you love that isn't constantly interrupted by a calendar someone else owns. And then there is another dimension to the other side. It may take longer to arrive, but when it does, to me, it changes the whole picture. And I talk about ownership. Equity stakes in businesses you've helped grow. Deal flow coming to you because your judgment is trusted by people who deploy capital. A portfolio of client relationships that generate not just fees, but a stake in what's being built. We'll come back to this because it's the part of the transition that nobody talks about and the part I genuinely find the most exciting. The executives I've seen who built this successfully describe it in similar ways. It's some version of, oh, I thought I was managing a career transition here, but actually I didn't realize I was designing the best chapter of my professional life. That's where this can go. Your version will look different from mine and from the person watching this next to you. But the same architecture gets you there. Your version of this is waiting to be designed. So let's start building. Okay, layer one, the flywheel, as I call it. 5 components, they work as a loop. And the key thing, most executives who come to me are doing 1 or 2 of these. Almost none are doing all 5. That gap right there is why some practices compound and others never really get anywhere. So component 1, market structure. This is the foundation. Everything else depends on getting this right. Market structure to me has 3 parts really. Positioning, packaging, and pricing. Positioning is really about one question. What specific problem do you solve, for whom, and why you? Now, inside a corporation, your title answered that question for you. Nobody had to ask. Now you have to answer it yourself in clear market language and in a way a potential client can act on immediately. Here's the mistake almost everybody makes. They describe who they were, former CFO, ex-regional CEO, previous head of strategy, whatever. But the market doesn't really buy your history, it buys expected outcomes. The question in a client's mind isn't, oh, how senior was this person? It's, what will actually change in my business if I bring them in? Second mistake with positioning, broad positioning feels safer, like you're keeping options open. But a broad positioning creates confusion, and confusion will slow down decisions. Clarity around your positioning creates instant recognition, and recognition is what gets you hired. Talk about packaging. How does your experience become something a client can actually buy? Markets don't buy advice in the abstract, they buy a defined intervention. Clear starting point, clear process, clear outcome. Without packaging, every engagement gets negotiated from scratch. With a good, clear packaging, your clients know what they're getting before the conversation even starts. And the third point is pricing. This is where most executives get it wrong altogether. Not because they lack judgment, it's because they've never had to price themselves before. A salary just arrived, it was set by a structure, now you set your own price. And the instinct is to charge for your time, because that's kind of the model you've seen up close. But stop. Please don't price on your time. Price how you work will help improve decisions, help avoid risk. The execution that would take your client 2 years and now takes them 6 months. That's what you're actually delivering, and that's what you should be pricing. Component 2, the pipeline. Now, a strong market structure generates pipeline, a consistent flow of the right conversation. And here's the distinction that changes everything. Your network is not your pipeline. Your network, as you're exiting corporate life, is a starting asset, yes. It produces early momentum, there'll be coffees, introductions, some warm calls. A few months, it feels like this is working. But be careful, a network is kind of static. It reflects the relationships that you built in the past. And it decays, slowly but surely, as your former colleagues move on, priorities shift. A pipeline is something very different. It's a deliberate system for continuously generating new conversations. Through content, through direct outreach, yes, platform relationships, strategic alliances, something that runs consistently. And 6 to 12 months after leaving the corporate role, this difference will become very, very visible to you. The executives who relied on the network kind of hit a wall at that point. The ones who build a system keep moving. Component 3 of the flywheel is governance. Again, this is one that very few people actually talk about in the context of doing something independent. And it's the one thing that quietly destroys most independent practices more than anything else. Governance is the discipline of saying no. Inside a corporation, there were kind of guardrails that were built into the system around you. Budgets needed approval, strategy got questioned, you had a board or a CFO, an audit function that kept things honest. When you go independent, those guardrails disappear. And without deliberate design, what fills the gap is usually financial pressure, to be honest. You take a piece of work slightly outside of your positioning because, well, it pays the bills. You discount your fee just this one time to close a deal. You expand the scope of what you're doing for a client to keep them happy. Now, each of those feel reasonable in the moment, but together over time, they erode everything you're building. And that drift doesn't happen suddenly. It kind of happens quietly, one small compromise at a time. So governance for your own independent business is what interrupts that drift. It's a small set of filters, mandate criteria, a pricing floor, kind of scope boundaries for your delivery, things you apply consistently, especially when it's uncomfortable. Here's something worth remembering. In advisory work, your credibility depends as much on what you decline as on what you accept. Component number 4, your operating system. Now, the operating system is how accepted work actually gets delivered, consistently, professionally, and in a way that builds the practice rather than burning you out. The executives entering independence fall into what I call the competence trap. They're so good at figuring things out in real time that they never take the time to build the underlying infrastructure. And for a while that will work just fine, but the moment volume picks up, it breaks. Every proposal is rebuilt from scratch, every engagement kind of starting from zero, every follow-up depending on your memory. But here's the good news though. The tools available to an independent advisor today, as you probably know, they're just extraordinary, right? We've got AI, templates, lightweight CRM systems, automated workflows. As a solo practitioner in 2026, you can deliver work that looks and feels like a much larger firm. The ceiling on what one person can produce has genuinely shifted enormously. But those tools only multiply what's already structured. If the underlying system isn't there, they just help you produce chaos faster. So structure converts your competence into leverage. Build the system first, then let the tools amplify it, okay? Component number 5. That's the last one in our flywheel. Proof and reputation. Every completed engagement, in theory, done well, produces 3 things. A reference, a relationship that can generate referrals, and a sharper story for you about who you are and why it matters. But here's what I observed over 18 years, watching consultants navigate this. Most of them deliver the work well, and that's fantastic. But then they kind of walk away. They don't ask the client to sign off on a written case study, they don't ask for a referral while the result is still fresh. They don't capture what just happened in a way that feeds the next conversation. So the value was there, they just left it on the table. So be deliberate about closing the loop. Ask for the testimonial, ask for the introduction, write up what you did and how it changed the client's business. It takes 20 minutes and it compounds for years. Proof feeds back into your market structure. It sharpens your positioning, it makes you more specific, more credible, and easier to buy. So over time, your reputation does the selling before you even arrive. Now let's look at how this connects. Market structure generates pipeline, governance filters it, your operating system delivers it, proof compounds it, and proof strengthens your market structure, which generates better pipeline round and round. Each circle makes the next one more powerful, and that's what I call the flywheel. When it's genuinely running, all 5 components active, all connected, the feeling is completely different from the early months of freelancing. It feels like a business. Something that you built, something that works whether or not you had a great week. And that's layer 1, and what it gives to you. Now, once you have that, here's how you amplify it. So once the flywheel is running, a natural question comes up. How do you make it go further without just working more hours, right? That's what the amplifiers do for you. And there are three. Amplifier number one that I'm very passionate about, platforms. One of the most underused accelerators for independent advisors is platforms and networks. And there are more of them out there than most people realize. Franchise consultant networks, interim management platforms, sector-specific advisory communities, board networks. Each one offers a different model, but they share a common idea. You don't have to build everything from scratch. A good platform hands you the things that take you years to build on your own. Positioning that clients already recognize. Packaging that is tested across thousands of engagement. Pricing logic and proven in difficult conversations. A peer network you can collaborate with and learn from. Now, this isn't for everyone. If you can build your own market structure confidently and you want full independence, that's a completely valid path. But for those who find it hard to start from zero, who want a proven framework to operate inside while they find their footing, I think a platform can be a perfect shortcut. In 18 years at Era Group, I watched almost 1,000 independent consultants join our platform and navigate it in very different ways. For me, kind of two types emerged consistently. The first type absorbed the platform completely. They treated the brand as their own, they built the pipeline as if no one was going to do it for them, and they flourished, often beyond what their CV on paper would have predicted. The second type kept trying to reinvent the model. They wanted to differentiate from the platform's approach, make it into something closer to what they'd had before. They never really found their footing. So two capable people, one platform. The difference wasn't the experience or intelligence. It was whether each person understood what a platform actually is and how to leverage it. Amplifier number two. People with skin in the game. The executives who build the most powerful second curves are almost never doing it entirely alone. They find collaborators that are motivated by real ownership, not just a monthly retainer or commission. That's easy. Equity actually aligns the behavior in ways that fees never can. When somebody has genuine skin in the game within your practice, when the outcome matters to them the way it matters to you, they will protect your machine and they will build it with the same care that you do. Amplifier number three, thought leadership. Now, I want to be honest about this one. Because for many of us, and I include myself in this, the idea of putting yourself out there publicly feels deeply uncomfortable. It can feel like entering a social media game that just wasn't designed for people like us, right? We spend our careers building things, not performing. But here's the reframe that helped me. It's not about being visible, it's about being findable. And I think there's a difference. A book, a newsletter, a consistent body of content that articulates your point of view, those work while you sleep. And every piece of published thinking that accurately names a problem your ideal client is experiencing becomes kind of passive pipeline, generating inbound interest without you having to chase it. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to post every day or chase likes. You need to say something true and specific in a format that lasts and say it often enough that the right people eventually find it. And with your flywheel running and the amplifiers in place, something starts to happen that you didn't necessarily plan for. You find yourself with access, real access, the kind that open doors to layer 3. So layer 3 is the equity horizon. Most executive transition content focuses on one question only. How do I replace my income? And that's a real and an important question. And the flywheel answers that question for you. But there's a second question and a more interesting one. One that almost nobody in this space ever raises. And the question is, where is your equity going to come from? Let me describe something. When you're independent and you work inside businesses as a consultant and advisor, really inside it, not as an occasional visitor, but as somebody trusted enough to see the actual situation, the cost structure, the management dynamics, the gap between what the owner believes is true and what the numbers say, you accumulate something that most people in the market simply don't have. I call it privileged access. Think about it. A cost advisor who spent 18 months inside a manufacturing business knows the company's cost structure better than its own finance team. A strategic advisor who's guided a founder through a major transition understands the culture, the dependencies, the real vulnerabilities of the business in ways no external analyst could ever replicate. That's not just useful advisory insight. For you and your business, that's kind of continuous due diligence. And it happens as a natural byproduct of doing good consulting work. And the advisors who recognize this, who understand that access itself has strategic value, are the ones who eventually build something far beyond consulting practice. They take equity stakes in businesses they've helped grow. They originate a deal flow for investors who trust their judgment. They design client portfolio with ownership in mind, not just income. Now, here's the critical thing. All of this depends on one thing above everything else: trust. The moment you treat privileged access as something to exploit, you'll lose it. Not just the investment opportunity. I think you'll lose the entire relationship, and worst case, you'll lose your good reputation. But when the work is done at the highest possible standard, no compromise, and a deeper conversation arises naturally from months and years of genuine value delivery, clients hear it very differently. They hear commitment. They hear someone saying, hey, I believe in what you're building enough to be in it with you. That's the kind of professional relationship that no corporate role ever offered you. So think about it that way. Fee income is the foundation. What gets built on top of it is actually your second curve. What comes next? I started the second curve because I couldn't find a channel I wanted to watch when I was navigating this transition myself. I didn't want career advice or motivational content. What I was looking for is real frameworks, drawn from real experience that treat you as the intelligent, experienced professional that you are, and helps you build something worthy of everything you've spent decades earning. So in the videos that follow, I'll go deep on each of the layers of this architecture: the flywheel, component by component, the amplifiers in detail, and the equity horizon. How to approach those conversations, how to design a portfolio with ownership in mind, how to build a relationship that makes it possible. The executives I've watched do this well, who took the transition seriously and built it deliberately, are, without exception, living and working in a way that is better than what came before. It's not easier, it's better. It's more alive, it's more chosen. The end of an operating role is not the end of relevance. It's the beginning of the most important and exciting architecture decision of your professional life. Subscribe if this resonated, share it with someone who's in this moment right now maybe, and I'll see you in the next video.